Hi there. We're going into week 3. We're still doing online classes, so I apologise for that. I'll talk about it a little bit more in a minute. What I just want to do is run through a few things briefly, because I haven't really talked much about the subject itself. So very, very briefly, management. What is management? We often think of a manager as somebody who's the leader of something, he makes decisions. It's a little bit more than that. The manager basically has a responsibility to try and organise and use the resources they have available to complete the task he has been given by the organisation. And there's often a balance between what we call effectiveness and efficiency. So think of it like cars. An effective car is one that performs really well. So maybe a fast car, it's very quick or something. An efficient car is something that does it very cheaply with little use of resources. So usually it's something quite small and very economical. Now, it's not so effective that it won't go as quickly, it won't do the job as well, it won't be as comfortable, but it will do it in a much cheaper way. So one of the jobs of a manager is to draw a balance between the two, effectiveness and efficiency. It depends which company he works for as to what that balance is. Some companies want to be more effective, more dynamic, but they're more costly. Others want to be more efficient. There's basically 4 areas of management. Now, we often think about the leadership part, but before that, we start with planning. Planning is looking at the goals of what you're being asked to do and working out how you're going to do that. Then the second stage is organising. So organising the resources you have available to achieve those goals. Then we get into the leadership part, which we'll do later, which is making it work, getting people effectively to follow you, do the work that you want, how you get them to do that in the most effective manner. And then finally, controlling. Now, controlling sounds a negative thing, but controlling is about analysing what you're doing, looking at what you're doing, getting feedback on it so you can try and improve your systems that you've got working. We talk about organisational culture as well. Every organisation has a very different culture to it. It has a different feel to it. If you think about companies like Apple, a good comparison, Apple and Samsung are probably very, very different in terms of how they work, what they expect you to do, just little things, how you're expected to dress, the times you're expected to work. So culture, and we're going to get into culture in a number of things throughout this course. Culture of the organisation can vary greatly between different organisations that make the same product or supply the same services. The environment that we talk about, there are some different areas of the environment. Now, something I'd like to point out with this is this changes very, very quickly now. If you think about technology, how much technology has changed over the years. Smartphones, for example, have only been around for about 15 years. Imagine what you would have done or what you wouldn't have been able to do if you didn't have a smartphone. I know because I never had a smartphone until they first came out. Computers, personal computers, 20, 25 years effectively with the internet. 25 years ago, most people didn't have personal computers and the internet was very, very limited, even for using email. So there's 2 things that have changed things dramatically in a very, very short period of time, and it's increasing so much more. If you look at your phone now to what you had a few years ago, maybe, how much different is it? It's phenomenally different. So technology is making things change fast, but also the world is changing. We talk about globalization now, and we just recognize that it's so easy to move around the world, to trade around the world. That hasn't been the case. Again, 23 years ago when I first came to Korea, I worked for an international organization that were based in the US, but my company was in the UK. It was a separate company. We dealt with all the customers in that country and nobody outside. I came to help the subsidiary in Korea, and they did it effectively the same thing. There was very little communication between the different companies. Now it's changed. They make stuff in China, it's designed in Europe or in the US or maybe in Korea. It's sold to customers throughout the world. It's a big transnational organization. They haven't split it up into different companies. The one I work for in the UK is pretty much gone now. There's no manufacturing at all in the UK. So globalization has changed. Trading, I mean, we look at like free trade areas. If you look at things like the EU has been very protective of its member states, probably for very good reason. A lot of work has been moved out to China. Even companies like Mercedes build stuff in China now because it's cheaper. How can they compete? So there's a lot of trade agreements set up. You've got odd things where Britain has decided that they're going to get out of the EU because they want the freedom of working outside. Let's see if that works in the future, I'm not sure.